Hello and welcome, students. It's good to be here again with you. Our topic of discussion today is food and beverages. Don't forget that in the previous classes we've talked about some aspects of tourism which relates to transportation and of course accommodation. So today we'll be talking about another important aspect, another vital aspect of the tourism industry, which is the food and beverage. For our learning objectives, one, we shall try to explain how travel and other events in history have influenced the growth and acceptance of different foods and beverages. Then we'll further move to discuss the impact of science and technology on food and beverages, after which we'll now try to explain the importance of rhythm, timing, and of course flow in food services operations. After such, we'll try to discuss the importance of menu and its impact on production and service delivery. And we'll be moving ahead from there to try and identify the important operational and financial concerns faced by food service managers. And lastly, for today, we'll be discussing or describing how food and beverages can add value to other tourism services. Now, talking about food and beverages, we all know what food is, and we all know what beverages are. So nothing calls for definition here, like you all know, but it's very important for us to know that food and beverages are not just the way we see them, like what we know about them. They are much more, or when it comes to tourism industry, then there is much more to food and beverages that we might think or that we might know. All right, provision of food and beverages fulfills not only human needs, not only the basic human need, but also special tourism needs. Like I mentioned earlier, of course, some of us or most of us must have been familiar with the Maslow's hierarchy of need. We all know that food is very, very important. It's a very, very important aspect of human life. If you look at the the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you find the physiological need as at the base. All right, that is the basis. That is the basis, and that is the first need of human beings. You know, they need to feed, they need to drink, they need to, for safety or housing and so on, for warmth. All these are the physiological needs. So food is part of the needs, right? Food and beverages are part of the need. So food is very, very important aspect of human life, and so also it is very, very special to the tourism industry. It's very, very special to the tourism industry because we've had the development of culinary tourists, okay, as a result of people's interest or tourists' interest in learning, in knowing about other people's culture in terms of maybe their way of life, their food, their drinks, and so on. So culinary tours emerged to satisfy this culinary tourists. So it's not just about eating or presenting the food, as it were. Tourists provide an important source of revenue to many food operators, right? Many food operations. When it comes to, tourism, it provides source of revenue to many food service operators because apart from feeding the immediate family or feeding themselves, they also provide services to other people, especially tourists, right? Especially tourists. So it's going to generate a lot of revenue for this kind of operators, the food service operators. On the average, tourists spend about 25%. Okay, this is according to research that tourists spend about 25% of their total travel expenditure on food services. So for us to know the importance of food and beverages to the tourism industry. As a traveler or as a tourist, it is estimated that you're going to spend 25% of your total expenditure. The remaining 75% will now be used for other purposes. You're traveling, your movement or your commute. Your movement from maybe one place to another, your accommodation, some other stuff. Okay, but only food and beverages is going to take 25%, or it takes 25% of total revenue, or total expenditure of tourists. Major influences on the development of food and beverage services. We've talked about the importance of food and beverage, especially to the tourism industry. So what are the influence? What are the influence on tourism? All right. So we have travel and discovery. The quest to explore and conquer new lands that encourage early travel also led to the spread of different food and beverage offerings. People move. They want to know. They want to, expand their horizon. They want to expand their land. They want to they want to control. They want to be in charge of, they want to expand their coasts in terms of land. As at then, this led to them traveling to other places, and when they conquer this, the occupants of particular places, if you've read history or we've taken courses related to history, you understand what I'm saying. So when people explore, when people travel to new lands and they spread their horizon, they expand their own space, then they also, in the process need to eat. They need to explore. They explore. They know more about the food and the maybe beverages taken by these people and so on and so forth. And this led to the development of culinary tourism, so to say. Food and beverages now drive many travel choices. At times when you even know about the kind of food that you're expecting, then you might even want to, you might prefer or opt to travel through that, through a particular route, for example. All right. Maybe you are interested in taking perhaps Arab food, or for example, you want to take English, you want to take some English and menu, then you might decide to, that might be a drive for you to travel to specific places of your choice where you can find those specific choices or types of food. So food and travel also, food and beverages also have influence, all right, on travel and discovery. Then science and technology. Before I move on to science and technology, for example, if you've explored a particular region of the world, or if a particular zone or region, and you think that, okay, I've known about this place, but I'm yet to know, I've yet to explore this place, I've yet to understand or know or taste the food of this kind of people, then that might even drive your own your decision as to where next to travel for your perhaps next vacation. So moving ahead, we want to talk about the influence of this on science and technology. The influence of food and beverages. Advances in farm technology has increased the quantity, quality, variety, availability of food, expanding menu choices all over the world. We all know that science and technology also have been unfolding. All right, it has been developing since ages, and it is still unfolding, and it has had impact on so many other aspects, which the tourism industry is also not left behind. We know that there is development in farm technology. They now use different kind of machine and tools, all right, or equipment to perhaps to harvest, to plant, to harvest, to cultivate, to even to store, to preserve. So all these are influence of science and technology on the farm, and this is invariably going to determine or affect the outcome in terms of the food production. It's going to affect the outcome in terms of the menu, the kind of menu. Excuse me. So it's going to affect the food production in terms of maybe the quality at times, even the quality and the variety, how well they are preserved. There are some food, or there are some fruits, for example, or vegetables that have their own season. So if these are well preserved, all right, if they are well preserved, then they can be available throughout the year. Refrigeration and freezing technologies also have impacted this food industry, along with the use of the irrigation, have helped in the storage and transportation of food. All right, some kind of food might be available in some particular regions, and they might not be available in some other regions. So with the development of science and technology, of course, the transportation industry has also been developed in terms of different sources, the rail, the land, the sea, and so on. So all this can be used as means of conveying those kind of food from one place to another or to other places. Building a culinary heritage. We now want to talk about building culinary heritage. We all know that creating food that we enjoy involves a combination of so many things, right? Combination of maybe the raw ingredients, right? Some maybe technology in terms of perhaps you want to use electric gas cooker, induction cooker, and some other science and technology stuff. And this has gone a long way in creating a great deal for the culinary service talent. So the more you see, the more you learn, the more you see, the more you know, the more you learn, the more you are exposed. So the development of science and technology has actually gone a long way. So the food and beverage operation, which is abbreviated as F&B, it's vary across maybe the world. It varies across the world and different continents. Commercial restaurant operations vary from quick service to elegance to full service. We all know what restaurants are, and they operate in different way. Some might be some might just be quick service, okay, and some might just be full service. Full service establishments also include employee and institutional food service. Some might be employee, so to speak, and as well as institutional food service. Moving ahead, we'll be talking about the beginning of modern food service practices. That's the development, all right? The development of modern food services. France is credited with the first restaurant, and most of the development has emerged from France before other countries or other regions started adopting them and developing them gradually, and they were like adapting them to their own environment, to their own local environment. But according to history, France is credited with the first restaurant. The first restaurant was developed in France. Most early lodging places and restaurants offered a table d'hôte. All right, the table d'hôte is a French word, so pardon me if I did not pronounce it properly. This is a form of a multi-course meal, all right, with few choices. There are few choices of the meal. We have multi-choice meal, and then the price is already fixed. So there are times that the choices might not even being existent, like you don't have choice. Everything is already calculated or fixed. It's already included in the price. All right. Then there are times that you have the a la carte, which is credited to Marie Antoinette. All right, Marie Antoinette's grim grand cuisine led to the rise of a la carte restaurants, which features a list of suggestions. For the a la carte, it's just like the opposite of the table d'hôte. All right, so for the a la carte, you have options in the menu, and you try to select. You can make selections from the options that you have in the menu. Apart from those, we should also note that the Savoy Hotel offers the best of food and service as well as the elegant ambience. Chef Escoffier revolutionized the method of food service and kitchen organization. All these are what we're still going to discuss later on, because when we talk about food, there are, many things, many aspects. There are many things that have been put together for us, before we can have the food on the table. So it's not just about the food itself, it's about so many things that have been put together, and even how the food, to the extent of how the food is presented and all those. So Escoffier was also recognized, or he also recognized tasks and activities in the kitchen by creating and defining the work of stations. So he was the one that more or less like reorganized, right? Reorganized the kitchen, reorganize the kitchen activities, like, okay, this section should be for this section can be used for this. So because there are ways in which kitchens are also organized too, maybe ladies can relate. So the person who this is accredited to is known as Escoffier. So here is a table showing a food and beverage timeline. That's as per the development of the food service. Between 4850 BC and 715 BC, that was where we had the Egyptian kingdom, and this was when travel became popular. All right, people sought new food and experiences, of course, because they are visiting new places. Thereafter, we have between 900 to 200 BC, where we had the Greek Empire. So the Greeks traveled to Egypt, India, Persia, Babylon, and they also brought back the knowledge of the various cooking methods, okay, that are used by these people. They visited, the Greek Empire. People visited, other places such as Egypt, India, Persia, and so on and so forth. So they got experiences of how these people prepared their meals and so on. So those were the things they brought back to Greece then. Then we also had the Roman Empire. We also have the period of the Roman Empire, which was between 500 BC and 300 AD. And that was when Roman conquered the Greeks. Don't forget, I also mentioned this, that when people want to expand, when they want to colonize, what they do was to wage war against those people, and when they conquer, then they take over or they colonize their land. So the Romans colonized the Greek, bringing back the Greek slave and their knowledge of food and preparation. So all these are the developments. Before we now have the Dark Ages between the 5th and 14th centuries, and that was when travel all but disappeared. All right, then we have the period between 1275 AD and 1295, where we have travels of Marco Polo to the Middle East and China, which brought about the development or the treasures of the spicy meals and so on, such as salt and pepper. That was when these were brought to Europe, renewing the interest in travel, trade, and the desire to discover new food, because these people were just coming across all these things for the first time. So they needed to explore, they needed to travel to be able to discover all this new food. Later on, between the 14th and 16th centuries, we have an Italian princess named Catherine de Medici, okay, an Italian princess who married a French prince, and she was the one who introduced the etiquette, such as the use of fork and napkin, as well as the Italian Florentine style of cooking. So all these are, they are developments so far. They are transitions from one age to another age. Now coming down to the 16th and 17th century, that was when we have the Europeans traveling to America and West Indies, and this also brought about development of new food or new beverages and so on. So, and that was when there was introduction of chocolates, all right, the chows, beans, corns, tomatoes, and potatoes. All these were brought, and then we also have Anne of Australia. Of Austria. It's worthy to mention that Anne of Austria. She's a member of the Spanish Habsburg family. All right, Habsburg family, and she is married, or she was married to Marie Louise III. Marie Louise XIII, and the Spanish chef introduced such espargno. All right, it's introduced. The chef introduced sauce espargno and the use of raw as a thickener for sauces. So if you even want to know about history of food, you can try to read about some kind of food and history, where they actually originated from, how they are being prepared, and all sorts. So there is actually a lot to learn about food and beverages in terms of the history and development. Moving ahead, we also have around 1651, sorry, where we have Per Frank de la Varenne, who published the first cookbook, right? He was the one that published the first cookbook, until so many other developments came around. And lastly, for this discussion, for the purpose of this class, was in 1970s, where we have chef and restaurateur Fernand Point of La pyramid in France, all right, who developed the novel cuisine. So far, this has been the development or the kind of timeline, all right, kind of timeline of the food and beverage. Planning to meet your guest expectations. As a food service provider, you are not just simply in the business of providing the food or beverages, all right? You're not just, okay, it's not just about, okay, preparing this food and then dishing it out. So it takes a lot of planning, all right, and a lot of expectation on both part of the service provider as well as the customer. Okay, there's an expectation as a customer that, okay, as you're walking into a restaurant, for example, there is an expectation. Also, as a service provider or a food service provider, there are also expectations, and that is why it is very, very important for food service providers to plan. All right, they are in the business of creating guest enjoyment, not only about the food. Okay, you are providing service, you are providing as well enjoyment for your guests, so you should make them feel at home. Achieving this goal requires attention to detail. You have to pay attention to detail, and you have to be well prepared, right? So guest experience involves interrelated factors. When guests are talking about, when we talk about guest experience in the food industry, it constitutes a lot of factors, not just the food. Okay, it constitutes the menu design. Okay, when you walk into a restaurant, you have your seat. The first thing, maybe the way you are even attended by the service provider or whoever is assigned to do that. All right, the place setting also is very, very important. Right, how is it arranged? Is it in the form of a dining or a form of a living room sort of arrangement or something? So all this mean a lot to customers as well as the service provider. It might even tell a lot about the kind of restaurant that one is going to. Even the plate presentation at times, it's very, very important also for the service provider to determine or to decide on the plate presentation. All right, you go to some restaurant or some whatever food service provider, and you have perhaps the name inscribed on the plate, on the other utensils such as the fork, the spoon, and so on and so forth. So these are part of it. These are part of the presentation, okay, the plate presentation, and even the food presentation itself, okay, how the food is presented in the plate or on the plate. Then we have the style of service, okay, the style of service. All these combined together combine together to form a kind of guest experience. So when a guest enters the restaurant and perhaps went to take food and beverage or drinks or whatever, and after such, and you ask the person about his or her experience, so what is going to determine the level of satisfaction of such a person will be a lot of factors, parts of which have been mentioned earlier, from the menu design to the place setting to the plate and presentation to the style of service. All these come together to actually form the guest experience, or to determine the guest experience. Consider target segments and their desires in designing menu. It's very, very, very important for food providers. Okay, before you meet your guest, you consider the target segments. Who are those that are coming? Who are those that you're expecting? Where are they coming from? What is the kind of nature, or what are they likely to expect? So this is going to determine the kind of menu that you're going to prepare for them. Further, we want to talk about the choices. All right, still on the planning of meeting your guests. You're planning to meet your guests now. The choice of serviceware and place settings. Okay, don't forget the serviceware or all the cutleries you want to use, like I mentioned before. And then the artistry of the food presentation on the plates. If you want to know more about food, it is much, much more deep. All right, the artistry of food presentation. How did you present the food on the plate? Take, for instance, you are serving rice. All right, are you serving the rice on the section or a portion of the plate, and then maybe the stew or vegetable on another portion, the stew on another portion? All right, so all these, are you presenting everything in just a single plate, or you want to have a kind of buffet where everything is available and the guests will have to serve themselves, and so on and so forth. So all these are related. They are part of planning to meet your guest expectation. Then the style of guest service. All right, the style of guest service. Do you want them to self-serve themselves, like I mentioned before the other time? You provide everything, all right, to present everything on the table, and your guests are expected to serve themselves, all right, and then after which they can make payment. This could also be the Russia form of service. All these come together, or all these put together, are going to form the expectations of the guest on one hand, and of course they are going to be part of what the food service provider is expected to plan for when you're planning to meet your guest, or before meeting your guest, you are supposed to plan for all this and execute them appropriately. So these are menu planning essentials. The first step is to decide on the items to include in the menu, or on the menu rather. Okay, what are the kind of food that you want to provide on your menu? What are the kind of beverages that you want to provide on your menu? So you can walk to some restaurant and they tell you that it's only halal, right? You may not be able to find pork meat or anything related to pork fat or something like that. And even beverages, they'll tell you, okay, we don't provide alcoholic drinks. You can only take soft drinks or juices or water. So, and there are times you go, some will provide both. Some will provide both the alcoholic and non-alcoholic and so on. So it depends. So you decide, as a food service provider, you decide on the kind of menu you want to offer to your customers. Then you design the menu appearance. Okay, are we presenting the food, the images of the food, along with the different kinds of drinks or beverages that are available, or do we want to have a section for food only, a section for vegetables separately, a section for drinks or beverages separately? So you also have to decide on how you want your menu to be designed, how you want it to appear. Then you select appropriate serviceware and place settings for menu items. You select appropriate serviceware, after which then you determine the plate presentation for all the menu items. How do you want to present such menu? Take for instance, if you are presenting something hot, for example, you want to present a hot beverage, say coffee. Okay, will you want to use a stainless ware, or maybe you want to use a mug or something like that, something unbreakable? All right. Then lastly, you select the appropriate level of service for the menu. What services do you want to offer for your menu? So all these are parts of the menu planning essentials. Moving ahead now, we want to talk about the reading, the timing, and the flow, right? All these, it all comes down to reading, timing, and flow. All what we've been discussing about your expectation, your planning, your execution, and the like. So all this put together are, about the reading, about the timing, and how do all these flow such that you meet the expectations of your customers. Developing menus and having the right equipment, the right ingredients, and the talent to produce this item is only the beginning of a successful food service operations. It's not just all what we've been discussing, are more related to, being successful at the end of the day if they are well executed. If they are not well executed, if they are not brought together at the right time in terms of the timing, it may eventually affect the outcome, and it may make your customers disappointed. It may make them feel disappointed at the end of the day if you don't meet their expectations. So developing the menu and then having the right equipment, having the right ingredients, apart from what we've mentioned before, having the talent to even produce all this is just the beginning. There are so more other things that I need to put in place. We have the brigade system, which was developed by Escoffier, like I mentioned before in one of the previous slide, and he was the one who actually started the the style of assigning tasks or setting tasks. Apart from maybe segmenting the kitchen into or segregating the kitchen into different aspects of the task, then he also assigned specific tasks to specific personnel. The personnel that will be handling beverages will be different from the personnel that will be handling, for instance, the stock that will just be used as base for maybe other soup and the likes. And then we also have another section maybe for vegetables and other things, cutting them and maybe grating, chopping, whatever you want to call it. And then other sections, all this, put together. So the reading, timing, and flow, like I mentioned, they lead to excellence in food service if we combine all this together. Apart from getting the right equipment, apart from getting the right personnel, apart from getting the right ingredients, we still need to talk about the reading, how it's going to flow, how it's coming, the right timing. If the stock that is needed for a basis of a particular soup, for instance, is not prepared on time, if it's late, then it's going to affect the time in which the soup will be prepared. And once the soup is also late, it's going to affect the time that the meal or the menu is going to be presented to the guests. So the timing is also very, very important when it comes to satisfying or meeting the expectation of your customers. So we've been mentioning about rhythm, timing, and flow. We now want to briefly define the three concepts. Excuse me. Rhythm is actually the coordination of each required task and activity, right? Like I mentioned earlier, maybe, okay, this is a section for beverage. Okay, you just deal with the coffee preparation, right? Then another person you assign with the task. Okay, you just, prepare all the maybe the stock, get the fish, get the fishes and prepare the fish stock, get the beef and prepare the beef stock. If you are the kind of restaurant that deal with maybe pork or some other things, you can get the pork meat and prepare the stock. So all this now will be transferred to those who are going to prepare the soup that will be needed. Okay, so rhythm is just coordinating all these tasks, and activity. Timing is the sequencing of each task. Like I mentioned before, the soup or the stock will be a basis for preparing the soup. You want to prepare the soup and you don't have the stock, of course, I'm not sure you're going to have a fantastic outcome as expected. So you need to get a stock, right? So you get a stock. The timing is the sequencing of each activity. The stock needs to be prepared first before it's now being transferred to those who are going to eventually prepare the soup. And lastly, we want to talk about the flow. Flow now is the combination of both the rhythm and the timing. All right, it's a mix of the rhythm and the timing, resulting in the smooth and efficient operation. So all these are what comes together in satisfying your or meeting your customers' expectations. Moving ahead, we want to talk about adding value to food and beverage experiences. How do we add value? Successful food and beverage operators differentiate their operations from those of other competitors by focusing on the guest service. All right, they focus on the guest service, they focus on the price and quality value. All right, they focus on unique food or dining experiences. So these are different aspects entirely. They are different aspects that successful food and beverage operators do focus on, so as to stand out. Okay, for you to be outstanding, you have to stand out. So for you to stand out, you have to be outstanding. So whichever you want to look at it, you have to be outstanding in whatever you want to do. Okay, you want to focus on your guest service. How do you welcome your guests? Okay, do you want to get a personnel at the entrance to open the door, to open and close the door for them as when they are entering or exiting? or do you want to make an automatic open and close kind of a door? These are in terms of service provision, right? Then the price and quality value. What you are presenting, is it a good value for its price? Then the unique food, you want to, present food that are not, common with other service providers. Okay, you want people to have new experiences at your restaurant, for example. Then what are the dining experiences too? All these things are what food providers focus on so as to add value. At one location, F&B facilities may be designed to provide services to a captive audience of guests. At another location, facilities may be designed to attract the guests. So depending, at times you already have some kind of customer base, you only need to retain them and so on. So the kind of facilities that you have will just be designed just to captive them. Then in some other locations as well, you may design your facilities such that they attract new guests. Okay, your new guests are being attracted to patronize your restaurant and so on. Properties may use F&B operations as part of their overall marketing strategy for different purposes. One, for creating a desired public image and defining their place in the market. All right, you want to use operations of the food and beverages as part of the overall marketing strategy. All right, we've talked about marketing strategies. So this is to create a kind of desired public image, and then you define your place in the market. It also attracts desired businesses. It's meant to attract desired businesses, and this can increase the overall profitability because rooms have a greater contribution margin than does the food and beverages. Creating new business opportunities is, of course, another way in which the food and beverage experiences can be added value to. All right, it can create new business opportunities like wine tasting. There are some people, culinary tourists also, they travel for different purposes, for wine tasting, for celebrations, themed dinners. You want to organize themed dinners, ball, brunches, and other combination of food, beverages, and so on and so forth. So all these are meant to entice people. You want to come up with new things so that you want to create new business opportunities for people. You invite them for wine tasting, you invite them for celebrations. You want to organize a setting that can be used for celebrations. You have a hall that can be used for maybe graduation, wedding, events, and other things. You have themed dinners, right? You have dinners that are, maybe okay, it's Eid al-Fitr or Ramadan. There are some hotels or restaurants that organize maybe Ramadan iftar, right? These are kind of themed dinners. You invite people to come. There are people that some might have maybe Christmas Eve dinners or Boxing Day dinners. These are ways of creating new business opportunities for the food and beverage providers. From 10 to 1,000, this has to do with the guests, all right? The guests that you are expecting. Many unique challenges to feeding groups on a one-time basis arise, all right, when it comes to meeting the expectation of your guests. There are so many challenges, like whether foreseen or unforeseen, all right. Most properties have multipurpose room for catering and banquets, and these rooms are meant to accommodate certain guests or a certain number of guests, and at the end of the day, some issues may come up where perhaps the space is just enough not to be too small for the kind of guests that the number of guests that are being expected and so on. So there are many challenges when it comes to entertaining or welcoming your guests. Catering sales managers also work with planners, right, so as to develop a banquet event order that provide the detail of satisfying the group food and beverage needs. So there are times that the catering sales managers will need to work with the planners, right, with the planners of the event, so that they will be, so that they'll be able to discuss in detail, like how many guests are we expecting, when should we expect them, where are they coming from, Yeah, are they coming from maybe the local environment within the country, outside the country? If they are coming outside from outside the country, are they coming from maybe the same, within the same region, all right, or from the same continent, or are they intercontinental, or are we expecting guests globally? So all these are going to determine, all right, they go a long way in determining, the preparation, and expectation of the guests. Building profitable operations. As service providers, um, the main purpose of being in business, of course, in any kind of business, not only the food service provision, the main purpose of being in business is to make profits. So as service providers, the food and industry, the food and beverage provider also are not left out. So they also need to work towards gaining, or making their own profit as well. So the F&B industry faces thin profit margin and fierce competition. They face thin profit margin as well as fierce competition. Restaurants have high failure rates due to so many factors, yet a relatively long lifespan. They just have to keep moving, they just have to keep trying, they just have to keep going so as to be able to meet the expectation of their customers, so as to be able to remain in business. At times businesses also do have their ups and downs. Food service operators are faced with working long hours and dealing with complex problems. They deal with different kinds of problems that are some are simple, some are quite complex. And they are also faced with long working hours. At times they spend several hours preparing food that may be consumed within maybe 30 minutes, 1 hour, less than that, right? 1 hour or less. But by the time you are told that, okay, this food or this menu was prepared maybe was prepared was prepared before, a day before, the preparation started a day before or 2 days before. There are times you have some menu like that. Perhaps you need to have soaked some, maybe the raw ingredients, maybe the raw food. Perhaps you need to soak, to grind, to do this and that, to leave it and allow it to ferment before you now process. Maybe you want to cook, or you want to roast, or you want to do some other things. So different kind of food have their own preparation. So food service providers need to pay attention to all this, and it takes them long hours, right, before they can come up with some of this food, and they are faced with so many other complex problems as well, especially maybe at times with preparation or development of new menu. Here are recipes for successful restaurant, like recipes for restaurant success. So one, operating costs are high, like we all know, like we mentioned before, and the profit margins are low. So you have to, budget the cost, and then the portion control are a must for you. You have to prepare your budget. You have to be able to estimate your cost, and then you have to be able to, control or organize or control the, apportion the amount you're going to spend on each of these or the aspects of the food and beverages. Labor is a significant cost, all right, it's a significant cost, and it's time consuming. These are issues to reckon with, and then you have to be sure to focus on effective selection, training, and retention. You have to be able to select the best, and you have to be able to train them, and most importantly, retain them, because your employee turnover also really affect businesses, all right? They affect the business. Prepare a good business plan and have sufficient cash flow and capital to make it through slow times. It's not all the times that you'll be having high sales, so you have to prepare, and you make sure you have enough cash flow to be able to pull through when the going is tough, so that when you have enough, then you can also make up for those. You must have a passion for the business and develop as well as practice strong internal control. You have to internally control whatever activities is going on. Pay attention to number one, customer demand, which is quality. Don't just provide or produce anything. It's not just about putting the food on the table. It's about everything that we've discussed that actually, that is actually part of the food preparation and presentation. And lastly, you monitor the marketplace. You have to keep your current concept, all right? You have to keep everything, and you have to keep your raw materials fresh and so on. You plan for changes. Don't wait for the sales to slow before you implement changes. Try to predict, try to prepare for the future. So try to, to forecast, to see what can happen in the event of this, then what do we do? In the event of this, what can we do? So you need to plan for the future as well. Next, we want to talk about building profitable operations. Don't forget that this is number one recipe. All right, balancing your payroll costs with productivity. Labor and food are the two largest controllable expenses of the food and beverage operations. High employee turnover, need to find and train new employees, is a constant challenge for food and beverage managers. You have to be able to regulate that. You need to know method or means by which you can retain your employees. Otherwise, by the time you have, you start having high rate of employee turnover, then you spend a lot in recruiting new ones, in training them again. All right, so retaining them, the cost of retaining your employee might not be as much as recruiting the new ones and training them again. So you need to be able to reduce the employee turnover. Food quality and food cost are the result of effective purchasing. So you need to be able to understand the market situation very well, know where you can get wholesale, or how you can get the food in bulk, the food item in bulk, and so on. Controlling the cost of food by effective purchasing, receiving and storing these products are very, very important. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Like we all know, prevention is better than cure. So that is another secret of your success, another secret recipe of a successful F&B. Food and safety, sanitation are the responsibility of the managers and employees. We must understand this so that everything or everyone will be safe. Don't run a restaurant or a food and don't run any food outlets where people will eat your food and they'll start having running stomach or whatever. All right, employee training and work procedure plus properly maintained equipment lead to a safe food service environment. How food service operators are addressing sanitation concerns. These are different. There are different ways, and we have, this shown in the table or presented in the table. How food service operators are addressing the sanitation concern. 96% have trained kitchen staff in food safety topics. Don't forget I've mentioned about staff training, staff retention. All right, staff recruitment, training, and retention. So some 96% of restaurants have trained their kitchen staff about food safety topics. 89 or 88% have audited food handling, preparation, and storage procedures. They would have audited to see that everything is done the proper way. 85% have trained wait staff in food safety topics. 66% have purchased insurance to cover food losses, food safety losses. And lastly, 61% have required food suppliers to submit proof of liability insurance. This was extracted from research by Perlich in 2004. That's to protect and serve. So this is just a figure showing the bacterial danger zone. Every food operator must understand this to preserve the good quality. To preserve good quality stuff fresh at an internal temperature of different kinds of food. For example, the meats, the dairies, the different kind of food. So we need to know the appropriate temperature to know. To store these food so that they will be properly preserved until they are needed. Beverages, right? Beverages are merely drinks. At times they could be alcoholic or non-alcoholic, right? So the distillation, fermentation, and compounding of spirit has a long and rich history. There are some beverages that have gone through different kind of process, at times distillation, at times fermentation, and so on. Alcoholic beverages and beverages are often used in food to enhance the flavor. There are times that in food preparation they use alcoholic beverages. Beverages are, they serve as complements to food and the dining experience. They complement the food and dining experience of so many restaurants. At times when you serve the meal, of course, normally you should serve maybe some drinks or beverages along, except the customer perhaps prefer water to any of the beverage. Beverage operations. Successful beverage operations depend on the same business principle as food service operations. So as long as you're in the food service operation, all what we have talked about applies when it comes to the beverage operations, from the preparation or planning to the expectation of your customers, how the drink or beverage is also presented, and so on, the location, and even the wares, the kind of cups, the mugs, maybe the tea cup or coffee cups, different things. All these are also part of the beverage and operations that we need to know. Heavy taxes on alcoholic beverages and changes in consumption behavior reduce the profit margins. So many countries, adopt heavy taxation so as to discourage the consumption of alcoholic beverages because of the adverse effect it has on the consumer as well as the society at large. You can imagine a person, driving while drunk. So he is constituting, is a threat to himself, all right? He's putting himself at risk as well as other road users, because he might just knock down somebody and the person might die. So he's putting other people as well as himself at risk. So many countries are like kind of putting heavy taxes on alcoholic drinks or beverages so as to discourage its consumption. The use of technology in bar operation is replacing the free pouring, right, practice to increase profits. Next is keeping spirits under control. How do government keep spirits or maybe alcoholic drinks or any intoxicants under control? One is by having legal liability, legal liability of third-party injuries after serving against alcohol. Another is society's closer focus on driving and drinking. So many society are now focusing on driving while drinking. It's now, in some parts of the world or in some countries, it is not allowed. It is not legal. It is an offense. All right. I don't want to call it a crime, to drink while driving. So all these are means of, putting the consumption of juice and spirit under control. There's also a need for training of employees to recognize intoxicated customers and respond with appropriate tactics when you have customers that have consumed spirits or alcoholic beverages and the likes, and they've started reacting or behaving in one way. So there is need for restaurant or food service providers, food and beverage service provider, to train these employees to be able to identify such when they see them, and then be able to deal with them or respond to them using the appropriate tactics. Lastly, for today, we have coffee, tea, or whatever. All right, non-alcoholic beverages have become an important revenue sources, like the subtitle, coffee, tea, or any other beverage that is non-alcoholic. So non-alcoholic beverages have become an important revenue sources too, not only alcoholic beverages, especially due to the explosion of specialty items. Combinations of beverages and food enhance the quality for the customers. When you present your food and you present some beverages along, it enhances the quality of that menu put together. And it also increases the tips for servers. It increases the tips for servers. On this note, we've come to the end of our discussion on food and beverages. Hopefully you understand this, and you please refer to your ebook. You have the topic there. Also, it's on the chapter 8, the same topic, food and beverages, chapter 8. You can read more on it. It's a very interesting topic. I'm very sure that you're going to enjoy your reading. And then don't forget to also refer to the slides. You have the PowerPoint and presentation. The audio file is also attached, so you can also refer to it if it's more convenient for you. Thank you so much for your audience. Hope to see you again next week. Inshallah, we'll be moving to another topic. Do take care of yourself. Bye. Thank you very much.